Great, thank you for that. Welcome back to the afternoon session. It's great to see so many people have stayed and not escaped home or to the pub. We're going to sit here and have a panel, so it's an opportunity for you guys to ask some questions about the project and perhaps about the future and our knowledge of Communities 2.0 and the world of digital inclusion. My name is Josh Hoole. I work for PAVS as the Communities 2.0 Partner Manager, so I'm going to be chairing the session. To my left, we've got Terry Price. What's Terry Price Inc.?
An advisor, put it that way.
So a consultant on the project for the past 6 years plus. Sue Black, self-confessed geek, as we heard today, joining us on the panel. Karen Lewis from University of South Wales.
We're one of the partners on
also, partner manager on the project, and project director Cathryn Marcus. So essentially, it's over to you for any questions that you may have for us. And we do have roving mics. Mike over there is literally called Mike, which is great. One from the front.
I was interested in what Sue was saying about tech mums, and I was wondering whether there was an opportunity for tech dads.
Yeah,
have you tried it?
Well, so when I started, I think everyone needs this, right? Everyone needs digital skills. So when I started doing things a few years ago, I was trying to target everybody, but it's very hard to just target everybody. So you have to find a niche, and I guess we started trying to do stuff with kids, which worked, but then I thought that actually kids are going to do that stuff at school anyway, so it's not really a challenge. And then thought about doing stuff with parents, and basically ended up with mums because I just thought that I want to find a niche group and try and affect as many people as quickly as possible. And so that's really how we ended up with mums. And also because of the shortage of women in tech, you know, for me it kind of ticks that box as well, in that we're creating female role models and hopefully some more women in tech, and women that will be confident with technology, and their children will then, either girls or boys, go into technology. And so tech mums just ticked all the boxes, but yeah, someone else can do tech dads.
I think there's an element where if you empower the mums, give them the skill, there's much more likely that knowledge will get cascaded around their own network and their families.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we chose the mums. There's a saying from, I think, a missionary in Africa who said that if you educate a man, you educate one person. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And so that's what we're doing.
Fab. Thanks. So any other questions? This could be a short 15 minutes.
Short.
From the middle.
Can somebody explain to me what's happening to all the kit that's been returned? And please, if you haven't got room for it, send it back to us, because we've got volunteers who desperately want to use it.
I think that's safe to palm that off on the project director.
Well, over the next month, whilst trying to, still do as much delivery as we can, we're undertaking a big task to collect up all of the equipment and to reconcile it back to our asset register, ready for it to go out to the next project. There is going to be a next project, and Welsh Government are going to be discussing that with everybody tomorrow afternoon. So we're going to be making sure that all of that kit is data cleansed, in good working order, and ready to go out for the next project. So yes, it will all be available.
We have now a kit gap. I've got 24.
I think we've had experience from other projects, either nationally and regionally, where a lot of kit has been bought and put into the community, and then years later it's still sitting, getting dusty in a cupboard somewhere. So it's quite important for us to be able to reconcile all the kit that has gone out and make sure it stays within the community where it can be used best.
Yeah, I think we moved on from those days of kitting out centres to move our equipment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that was why in the second half of this project we invested in more kit, and we turned it into mobile units that could be used wherever it was needed in the community. And I'm sure that's going to be the Welsh Government's intention for the next project as well. I mean, it's a considerable asset. It's not like it used to be in the bad old days where you had a laptop and it was good for 3 years and then really it had it. You know, these days tablets can last for ages. So there's a really, you know, there's a lot of really good stuff there that can carry on being used. And whilst I appreciate there's going to be a little bit of a gap while we do a handover, to say I hope there won't be a very long gap at all.
Are there any more questions then from the audience? Yeah, Lindsay, one behind.
Hi, talking about the volunteers, for not necessarily the volunteers that have come in from partner organisations, but the volunteers that were created by Communities 2.0, what sort of support has been given to them going forward? Because as it is at the moment, we don't know what the next stage is of the Communities 2.0. So the current volunteers that are out there now, then there are other organisations in place, such as WEA Wales, that are actually doing digital inclusion anyway. So what I'm thinking is, how do we get that information to those so that they're aware in the interim period there is still work being done where they can refer people through?
Anyone else want to take that? That's probably my area.
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of volunteers who've been working through Communities 2.0. So they've been supported and trained, recruited by us, but we know that we come to an end. So what is going to happen to all of those? And in essence, because there's another project coming, we don't know the scope of that or the scale or who will be managing that, that we can't rely on it. So there are a lot of other organisations who have either started engaging digital champions or are looking to make use of them, as it were. And really it's up to us to get that message to the current crop of digital champions about where they can carry on their work. And certainly from the Pembrokeshire perspective, all of ours wants to continue delivering support in libraries, but we know that can't be through us. So we're letting them know who those other organisations are that they can either get in contact with or can contact them to continue what they do. So I guess the ask for you guys would be, well, if you can let us know if you're interested in developing digital champions or techie volunteers, let us know and we can get that message out to the volunteers on the ground.
I suppose it's worth sort of saying that going forward, with the tender that was put out by the Digital Inclusion Unit, that volunteering was quite a major part of that. So whoever actually presumably wins the tender will have some programme for volunteering. What you don't know is who's going to win that and what shape that would take. But there certainly should be some continuity there.
And I mean, you know, to reassure people, we are doing everything we can to make sure that this project's legacy is properly recorded and documented. I mean, we've always worked very, very closely with our colleagues in the Digital Inclusion Unit. And, you know, we're closing this project and doing a handover together so that we make sure that all of the resources are handed over, whether it's, you know, where are our volunteers, where is the kit, what are the training resources. We're going to great lengths to make sure that that's all passed on, you know, as a piece, so that the next people can pick up where we've left off.
Can I ask Sue around Tech Mums if the volunteers are engaged on that programme?
We don't have any volunteers at the moment. It's all paid.
Okay. So that, yeah, there might be some opportunities in other areas to bring in volunteers or use that
Yeah,
model
absolutely. Absolutely. I think when we're a bit bigger,
Yeah.
I think it will work well with volunteers. But at the moment, because we don't have funding to train volunteers or anything, then we're not at that stage yet. But yeah, definitely later on.
Yeah, fab. So open that back out to the floor. Yeah, Lindsay in the middle there.
Thank you. It's a question really for each of the panel for your opinions. With the impact of universal credit about to hit registered social landlords, such as the one I work for, what does each one of you feel our priority should be in dealing with the digital divide in terms of with our tenants? Where should we be putting our focus?
Do you mean where should you as social landlords or where should
Yeah.
we as Wales?
Both really. We've each got our own programmes in dealing with reducing the digital divide. For ourselves, it's in terms of the Welfare Reform Act and Universal Credit coming in and making sure that people are able to pay their rent and can get online. So how do you think we could be doing that to the best of our abilities? What do you, as individual panel members, think should be our priorities in terms of where we should
Okay, Sue?
So I'm going to say the obvious thing, but I think you should be focusing on mums because in a family, usually mums make the most decisions around finance and are kind of, that's what they do. They look after the money. And so the more digitally savvy the mums are, I think the more that that will benefit the community living in the social housing.
You want me to say?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there are a number of things you should be thinking about. I mean, I think it's important people are able to access the internet clearly, and a number of things you could do to sort of help them do that. One of them would actually be making sure that tenants are actually able to access broadband and have the tools to do that, which means probably some community broadband schemes, those sorts of things, which at the end of the day aren't going to cost you a fortune compared to probably some of the penalties you're going to get if welfare reform actually causes lots of rent default. That's one of the areas. I think another area is clearly thinking about the digital skills that people have got, the ability to actually go on board and use that. But I think the other thing that you've got is you've got huge numbers of frontline staff that go into people's houses, and they could actually be equipped to go in and help people to do a lot of this. So it's not just the housing officers you've got, but thinking about some of the frontline staff like repairmen, others, people who could actually take kit with them into people's houses and actually enable people to get online and do some of the tasks that they should be doing.
Yeah, if
Karen?
I just pick up on that, Terry. I think absolutely that, and I think it's also about sort of wherever possible future-proofing. I mean, it's coming very quickly and a lot more quickly than people realise. So I guess it's about informing people as well and giving them confidence, not frightening them, but also about working with other partners. I mean, a lot of the work that we've been doing in the later stages of Community 2.0 has been about working across the sector and sectors to encourage people to work with people who are going to be in receipt of benefits to make sure, whether it's through libraries, whether it's through job centres, whether it's through yourselves, to enable them to have some access. But, you know, the reality is, I think for lots of people, it's going to cause a panic. And for me, it's about educating and being in there as early as possible and having all of your staff, whatever their role is, as Terry said, aware that this is going to be a major issue for people. And another issue which we haven't even got time to touch on today, sorry, I think I've lost, is for lots of those people there's also an issue around literacy and numeracy. And I was in the session earlier which Teach did around financial skills, and I don't know, financial inclusion. I know the two go hand in hand. So, you know, it's a big task and it's something that needs to be tackled. But I think being, you know, forewarned and forearmed is the best that we can hope for. Has my mic gone?
Taz.
Yes, as well.
Well, I'll pick up from where you've left off, Karen, because I mean, my response would have been, you know, about digital and financial inclusion being one and the same thing. Funnily enough, the workshop that we've just been doing is about frontline staff training and about, you know, how training your own staff to deal with digital inclusion these days is just essential. Because of the rollout of universal credit and because everyone's going to need a government gateway number to do pretty much anything anytime soon, the sooner we tackle this, the better. For me, it's about rolling digital inclusion into everything that your staff do. And I know that seems like a mountain to begin with, but I mean, in the last session we had Nigel Lewis from Coastal Housing talking, you know, about how it has completely changed the way in which his staff work. It feels like a mountain to start with. It feels like something else to do. But actually, once the staff start to tackle it and get into it and see the benefits for them personally and professionally, as well as the real benefits for their tenants, it's a mountain worth climbing.
I think for me, I'd have the 4 C's. So kit is the first C, connection, there's a worse one coming, connection, confidence, and skills. Sort of see. And I think if you can look at getting all of those working together, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, you're just making me, with what everyone was saying, think about how great would it be to live in an environment where your housing association provides broadband for you and has connections to people that can come in and bring you the kit at a low price, and then you've got education on site as well. If you could provide all of those things, then you're kind of ticking all the boxes, I think.
Does that help? Is that problem solved for all RSLs then? Not quite. Fab, anyone else then?
Yeah, I just feel the need to say something about the voluntary sector and, you
Do you want to hold? Can we grab a microphone there? So I think also they can hear you on the live streaming. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, you're working with the voluntary sector, and there hasn't been a huge amount said about that. You know, maybe some national organisations are mentioned, but local organisations can do an awful lot of working with the volunteers and this kind of thing, and building the legacy that's been talked about. I work for Communities First, and I've seen, you know, the Communities First involvement in the voluntary sector change over the last few years as well. And I think it's a real shame that we've gone in that direction, and there needs to be a turnaround in involving the voluntary sector more at local level. I wonder what the board think about that thought.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The voluntary sector almost has a lot of access to the people in need who need to get online. And I think there's a lot that the sector can do to build on that, although there are a lot of other organisations who are delivering digital inclusion almost on behalf of the third sector. Because I'm from a CVC, so a county third sector body, and we've been doing a lot of training to CVC staff and to third sector organisations recently, and the project as a whole has helped around 400 third sector organisations nationally, but mostly that's to use technology themselves to help them become sustainable. And I think you're right, the next step after that would be to use that technology to help build and deliver better services. Anyone else from the panel want to pick up on the third sector?
I don't think, is my mic still not working? Sorry.
Can you lean in appropriately to Cathryn?
I know, I've had occasions when people have tried to shut me up, but I've never actually had my mic turned off, so thank you. Yeah, just to add on that, I think for the experience that we've had, and the team that I've worked with for the last 6 years has been the outreach workers, so been working very much at the front line within communities, is that as Josh said, you know, the voluntary sector is key in this, but building those relationships locally, picking up on what you were saying there about local organisations and small organisations is also key. And I think, you know, going forward to the next stage of whoever delivers this, then the training that is done, that we've just started, as Cathryn said, training frontline staff, has to be embedded within the third sector. And that means, you know, very small organisations that may not necessarily be on the radar everywhere else, that we need to be getting to train those staff and volunteers in digital inclusion at a local level. And I think that's something that's key for the next stage. That would be my view.
For me, volunteering is incredibly important. But we see some really good examples where it's not necessarily small third sector organisations, things like county councils, others, you know, engage in volunteers, use them incredibly well. For me, the big thing with using volunteers is the consistency, and you know, knowing you can rely on that as an ongoing resource. And for me, there's an issue often with infrastructure. You know, the volunteers need to be supported, they need to be trained, all that background stuff that goes with it, and you need to make sure that's in place as well. That's the more difficult bit to crack, because that means resources. The resources are available in some places, in others they aren't. So I think anybody going forward in the new programme, volunteering is clearly going to be a big part of it, but you also have to crack that issue about putting the right sort of infrastructure behind it.
Okay, but rapidly running out of time. Any final question that anyone would like to ask? All gone quiet. That's good. Well, in that case, I think that brings everything to a close for today. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending, but also thank the speakers today. So Sue, thank you for your inspirational speech. And to Leslie Griffiths, the Minister for Communities and Tackling Poverty. Yeah. So I'm assuming a lot of people will be coming tomorrow. It'll be a very exciting day because it's the awards as well. So all of the fantastic projects we've worked with, volunteers we've worked with, organisations we've supported will be here collecting that or hoping to win the awards. So it'll be a fab day. It starts at 9:30, so a lot earlier than today started, just to give you a bit of a warning. Yeah, and we'll look at future focus, whereas today's been more about the past up to the present. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the future of digital inclusion in Wales, and we'll hear from the Digital Inclusion Unit of the Welsh Government about the plans for that. So that brings today to a close. Thank you.